Zone 7 is a well-known off-road motorcycle track just off the M7 highway outside Cape Town. There's a rush of adrenaline and a thrill in powering an agile motocross bike through the dirt and over the jumps. Well, now Zone 7 is attracting more and more racers who won't get dusty and dirty or risk injury, but they're still racing hard. This is the world of off-road radio-controlled car racing. Chairman of the Zone 7 Off-Road RC Club, Jaco Taljaard, tells us why he loves off-road racing.
There's an unpredictability in it. It's what I like, and I like the dirt. Cleaning the cars, working on the cars, it's kind of therapeutic. You sit there, you focus only on that, so it takes your mind off of other things. So for me, it's a de-stressor. So I enjoy working on the off-road cars.
As with many motorsports, there are a couple of categories of cars that are raced at Zone 7. It all depends on how far and how fast you want to go, as Jaco tells us.
Our cars are all coming on kit form. You get either RTR, which is ready to run, or a Pro chassis, which means that you have to build everything yourself. You buy the kit, you put it together, you choose your own motor, your own servos, your own radio, you put the kit together as you would like it. Obviously the Pro version is a lot more expensive, but people getting into the sport, RTR is the way to go. It usually comes with a radio. You just need to add fuel in a radio battery, and you're good to go. So we don't distinguish between the two classes here. RTR and Pro run together. It's exactly the same cars, essentially.
These cars might look small and relatively simple, but rapid technological development means they are as adaptable and evolved as most race cars. As a result, there are some limitations to what modifications are allowed at national level.
On national level events, we have a restriction on motor size, but only in the buggies. So buggies would be the smaller one, and truckies is the bigger one. The buggies, there's no restriction on the size of motor you put in there. But yeah, there's a lot of technology in the cars. You wouldn't think it, but it is. The cars run with 3 differentials. You adjust how it turns in and power by means of adjusting the oils. So there's a lot of spannering involved. There's a lot of technical know-how involved, but it's fun working on the cars. So yeah, every time we do something, you see what happens.
There are a number of different sizes in remote control racing, 1/5, 1/8 and 1/10 scale. So what is the state of radio-controlled car off-road racing in the Western Cape?
This is the only real off-road racing track that we have. There's another one in Kraaifontein, but it's a mixture of 1/5 scale, 1/8 scale. It's a big mixture there. Our club members compete at national events. So countrywide, there's a couple of clubs in Johannesburg and in Durban, one in East London, and there's a very big track in Belcom in the Free State. Those are the big hubs of where RC racing is taking place off-road. On-road, there's other places, 1/10 scale, there's different places. So yeah, the sport has declined a little bit because of financial constraints. Everybody's taking the crunch.
Every child at some stage wants a radio-controlled car, but very few continue with them beyond the moment they break. So how many serious participants are there that race at Zone 7 on a regular basis?
So here in Cape Town, we have about 20 plus club members, and they range from all the 4 classes, which is nitro buggy, electric buggy, nitro truggy, and electric truggy. A lot of the other clubs don't run electric truggies, but we do. It's a fun class, it's an easy class. For some people that maybe don't want to spend as much time on working on their cars, the electric is a little bit easier, and the running cost in the long run is a lot less because you just recharge your batteries, you don't have to buy fuel.
It certainly looks a fun way to indulge one's competitive spirit. But exactly how accessible is the sport and the radio-controlled car club of the Western Cape at Zone 7?
The sport is absolutely accessible to anybody. Usually the thing that keeps people away is the initial startup cost. If you haven't been doing RC, then it's a lot of money to get into the sport, but it's not reserved specifically for older people. We've got young kids running at national level. In Durban, I know there's a couple of youngsters that are up and coming, really good, really good drivers. So yeah, we want to encourage younger people to come with us, and the fathers usually bring their sons, and the sons start riding, and then the fathers step back and the kids take over. So yeah, definitely we want to grow it into a family sport, not just for older men.
Off-road radio-controlled racing is in that interesting phase of educating people about the sport, transitioning from a toy to a serious racing machine, and then onto the tracks. So how does Jaco see the future of off-road radio-controlled racing?
We'd love to have more than one track in Cape Town. We'd love to host nationals more often. And we'd love for more people to take part when we actually have our race days. We have a race day every month, and yeah, we put a lot of time and effort into getting the track ready for racing specifically. So yeah, just like the numbers to grow. And unfortunately, it seems like you'll have to get one track to go big, and then you can split to another track and have another track and then grow on that one. But yeah, it's been a long process getting the track to where it is now. Like I said, it started in 2015, but it's as good as it's ever been. And yeah, we can only go better.
The synergy between full-scale car racing and remote-controlled car racing is clear, and a number of drivers do both, like South African radio-controlled racing champion Mian du Toit, who's been racing vehicles since he could walk.
So I've been racing my whole life. My father raced before me and my grandfather raced, and when I was about 6 years old I raced PV50s, little motorbikes, and progressed through go-karts, and today I still race big cars at Kalani. But I've always had a love for RC cars. As a small kid, my dad had RC cars in the garage, and I would always sneak in there and play with the controllers and whatnot. Always had a pull towards that, and probably my first taste of tinkering on stuff myself, before I got to work on my own big racing cars. And still to this day, it blows my dad's mind why I'm so keen on racing RC cars over racing real cars or full-scale cars. It's not that the one is more than the other one, but I definitely get the same thrill when the race starts and the dice, and there's so much setup and knowledge involved. In the Oaks, it's the same crowd, it's the same car people that you will find at Kalani, you will find them here. So yeah, we love it.
Mian is one of the most experienced off-road radio-controlled drivers in South Africa. He has raced internationally and says there's a vibrant racing scene overseas.
Yeah, there's a big international scene. They have a World GP, RCGP that started very recently. It's a new series that they're trying for this year. And then there's a sanctioning body called IFMAR that runs all the world championships for different scales and different events. So every second year there's an off-road world championship, different countries. So there is definitely a world championship series. And on a local level, I guess I'm the local champion here in Cape Town. And then I've won the SA title before for off-road nitro. And currently I'm the chairman of SARDA, which is the governing body for South African Radio Drivers Association. So yeah, we're heavily involved, and we try our best to keep the sport going and get people involved.
The fuel-driven cars are far more complex than the electric cars. But you can't take your radio-controlled car to the local garage to fill up. Mian tells us why.
It's a methanol. Methanol is the base, that's the fuel. We run different levels of nitro in the field. So some, like airplanes, the Oaks fly 20% or even lower. We generally run 25% in Cape Town because the atmosphere is conducive to that. When we go up to higher altitudes to Welkom or Joburg, we'll run up to 50% nitro to make up for the lack of power. But each to own. Some of the Oaks mix their own brands of fuel and do their own concoctions. We generally just buy our fuel in a good import fuel. And then the cars are allowed to run 125 milliliters of fuel. That's actually a rule, a hard rule that we do check after races. There's a whole scrutineering system that happens, along with weighing the cars and measuring how wide they are. And then the bigger cars, the truggies, have 150 milliliters, but they weigh slightly more, so they use slightly more. So actually the run time we get on a tank is similar. And then in regards to how much run time we get is how wasteful of a driver are you, how much time do you spend on your roof, and also the state of tune of the engine. If the engine is poorly tuned, it's very rich, it's going to burn the fuel badly and spit it out the exhaust pipe. The engine is well tuned, it will run longer. So anything between 7.5 to about 12.5 minutes is possible. Which obviously gives you advantage strategy-wise if you don't have to be in the pit lane all the time.
As Jaco told us, the sport is very accessible to all, and a driver's success does not depend wholly on his or her physical fitness or mobility. It's open to all ages as well.
In regards to the age of the Oaks, I think you get all ages here. We have people in wheelchairs here, which has always had a love for some sort of wheel sports, and this is accessible to them. We are most of the tracks in the country actually have a wheelchair access, so that's the Oaks always try hard. And then as far as the age, often see fathers coaching their kids along. The fathers will also be involved. The reality is it's not a cheap sport. So youngsters won't necessarily be able to afford it. But look, there's always ways. There's always a way you can buy second-hand, look after your kit yourself, and you know, there's always a little sponsor deal somewhere, or, you know, hook up with one of the faster riders, and, you know, you can hang on some of the older tires and stuff, because the faster oaks seem to go through a lot of tires, and, you know, there's a lot of tires to be given away. And there's a bunch of oaks. Between me and Marco, we try very hard to get everybody here. This morning I had to bring an exhaust pipe for someone, and we always setting a car up. So the age, yeah, I think it's more, you know, what the people can afford. It's not a cheap sport, and yes, it's definitely a sport. It's you know, to the outsiders it might look like madness, but what motor racing doesn't look like madness. Now, if you go to Kalani, people are racing in circles, spending a huge amount of money to race in circles as fast as they can. It's pretty much what we do here. We're just not sitting in it. It's definitely a sport. You get professionals. I myself is a sponsored driver, so even on the small level, there's definitely, and it definitely changes. I mean, if you look at the field today, most of the oaks are running technos, and that must be down to the fastest oaks at the club is running technos. And you can go to different clubs in the country, and they will have a pro. There will be a sponsored driver, or 2 or 3, trying to push a brand. So on that front, it's definitely a bit of a business. It's definitely professional. Right at the top, if you go to a national level, the top 12 oaks that will go into the A final, 90% of them are sponsored drivers, and have been racing for a long time, and is the champion from their tracks. So it's definitely quite a serious sport, and it's recognized as a sport by the Minister of Sport. If you enter a Saturday event, a national event, we could actually give you a certificate saying that you're competing in a national event, which would put you in a position to compete for a world championship, qualifying for world championship. So it's seen as a genuine sport. Yeah.
Clearly, Neon du Toit is serious about racing his radio-controlled car off-road, and he does so very well. We got the chance to gain an insight into how he sets up his car for the races.
So this is the 1/8 scale buggy, the nitro cars. This is the premier sport here by us. It's got a light Lexan body on it that weighs as little as possible, basically for aesthetic reasons and keeping some of the dirt out the car. And as you can see, it's a 2-stroke engine with an expansion pipe on it, exhaust pipe. And this is our air cleaner. We change it out quite often. It depends how dusty it is. This morning it's quite wet still. It's our fuel tank. It's obviously a quick opening with fuel stops. And the engine is actually slightly fuel injection. It gets a bit of pressure from the exhaust side that pressurizes the fuel tank. Okay, so this side is the electronic side of things. We got the throttle servo that does the braking and the acceleration, opens the throttle. We got the steering servo that does the steering for the front wheels. And in here we got the battery and a transponder to do the lap times.
While the sport of off-road radio-controlled car racing might not garner a mass following, there is enough good work going on at Zone 7 to suggest that further growth is possible. So what needs to be done to attract those drivers to the tracks?
It is expensive, but it is in the grass. There's plenty second-hand equipment around. And to answer your question of how we're going to do it, it's just to carry on, to keep the tracks going, to keep the tracks alive. And obviously, to keep the tracks alive, we need the support of the people that are here on a monthly basis, and to come practice, and, you know, guys helping out at the track, doing the maintenance and mowing the lawns, and just keeping the track in a good nick. It's not, you can't go to the sport if the track's not in a good nick. Obviously, the guys are just going to come here and practice and want to try it out. They're going to see, oh, the track's not in a good condition. Why should we even spend money on the sport? So in my opinion, keep the facilities as within, you know, within the budget, but, you know, try your best. It doesn't cost anything to have a few guys come here on a Saturday and fill holes with wheelbarrows and, you know, and sweep the track and, you know, all that type of stuff. So in my opinion, just keep on doing, whoever is in the sport, we need to keep on doing what we are doing, and I'm sure the people will follow.
It's a seriously cool sport, so next time your son or daughter begs you for a remote-controlled car, go for it. You never know, he or she might become a world champion.